My name is Sally. I live with my husband Mark and our daughter who is now 5 years old and has become more verbal. I'm a 31 years old working mother. We are not particularly rich or poor, just a normal and very close family, which ended up being hit by the storm. The storm was called Victoria, my mother-in-law. Her husband had passed away, and she had been living alone since. She, Mark, and I agreed not to live together at the beginning of our marriage. It was hassle-free for all of us. Mark was the only son she conceived late in her marriage. 5 years after we got married, she had become quite old, and living alone was becoming a lot harder and more dangerous. Mark took the time to go and see her, but it seemed troublesome for him. Watching him try not to burden me and tackling on his own, I made up my mind to have her move in with us. My loving husband was working hard, and how could I not support him? I put myself together and boldly told him about my decision. He was very surprised and uncertain at first. To be honest, I wasn't certain either, but also knew the situation needed to be implemented. I told him that I won't be able to do much as I still have to take care of the chores, our daughter, and my work. If anything happened to Victoria, he was basically responsible to care for her. We discussed in length about our plan and then welcomed her into our home.
Thank you so much, Sally. I really appreciate it.
On one spring day, when cherry blossoms were dancing in the wind, she thanked me in tears. Seeing her humble attitude, I thought we were going to live well together. She remained modest in the beginning, but as the days went by, her true nature was revealed. Her bullying started on me, and I realized how wrong my judgment was.
Sally, this tastes too strong for me. Can you dilute it?
If I did as I was told, then she said,
Why did you make it so tasteless? Are you mocking me? How rude.
This was just the beginning.
All my clothes must be washed by hand. The washing machine will damage them. They are all good quality.
When I suggested taking them to dry cleaning, she replied,
Such a waste of money. You're living off of my son's income. You should think more about saving money.
It could have been solved easily if she paid for them from her own pocket, but she seemed not to consider. Well, I was convinced that she was just harassing me as she was smirking the whole time. By the way, this was the introductory level. The intermediate level was like this.
Sally, do you put on makeup? I don't think it helps you much. The base is bad to begin with. My granddaughter is lucky to take my son's look. He looks like me. Hence, she too looks like me. She has a bright future.
And she woke up at 4 in the morning to put on makeup for over 2 hours. She looked like a different person after a shower. I could respect her as a woman for wanting to be beautiful forever, but her foundation was way lighter for her skin tone. She looked like a geisha. Her cheeks were oddly red. Plus, I had a hard time getting her bright red lipsticks off the cups. I knew how rude it was to criticize someone's appearance, so I kept my mouth shut. What I couldn't forgive was that she threw away my precious makeup set so easily. When I came back from work, the whole thing was gone. I asked her why she threw it away.
I've been telling you, haven't I? It doesn't work on your ugly face. Don't waste money on useless things. Save, save, save. Do without makeup from now on. Oh, how caring I am for this family. You better appreciate me.
Never would I ever. If I was in the mountains, I would have screamed my head off. The word never would have echoed many times into her ears. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the mountains. The lame thing was that she only bullied me when we were alone. She chose the time when Mark was at work and our daughter was in preschool. I hesitated to complain to Mark about his mother, but I still wanted him to be aware of it. I mildly expressed my dissatisfaction after much agonizing, but it was useless. "I'll speak to her." When he warned her, she ended up denying in tears. She even went as far as to say that I was trying to frame her. Mark didn't know what to do but was confused. I too had no choice but to roll my eyes. If she refused to own up to her actions, I had a plan. A picture was worth 1,000 words. I decided to secretly record the interactions between her and me and show them to him. When I was thinking about where to hide the camera, the advanced level of bullying started. It was spring when she moved in, and then a hot summer passed, autumn ended, and one day in winter, Mark was away on a business trip for a few days. My daughter was also away, staying with my parents. It was snowing outside. I usually drove my car for work, but I hadn't put chains on my tires, so I took a taxi on that day. After work, I normally cleaned the house, did laundry, and then cooked dinner. Let me repeat, it was the dead of winter and at night. Snow was piling up outside. It was definitely not the right situation to wash clothes by hand. Despite this, Victoria gave me a pile of her laundry with a grin.
Here's my laundry. These are expensive clothes, so you must wash them by hand.
She repeated must because she knew I wasn't going to like it. I'll wash in warm water.
No, you can't. The color will fade and you damage the fabric. You must wash in cold water in the whole time.
I was running out of my patience and thought, it's snowing out, you moron. Are you kidding me? Why should I use cold water on this freezing night? If you care so much, do it yourself. I yelled at her.
How dare you? I'm elderly. Are you serious suggesting I wash these in cold water myself?
I wanna ask if you're serious.
I am always serious.
It was worse if she really meant it. Not expecting that I was going to talk back to her, her face turned red, and she grimaced at me. I wasn't going to step back. Why don't you go outside and check for yourself? You've been warmed inside all day long, so you don't realize, do you? It's snowing a lot and unbelievably cold out.
What the hell? You're telling me to go out in the cold? You're terrible.
What about you then? You demand me to use cold water in this cold. We argued back and forth. I was determined to fight all the way. I felt bad for Mark, but I couldn't be a good wife if I must continue to live with her. I was grimacing at her when she suddenly grabbed my hand tightly. She dragged me while I was taken aback by her strength, which made me doubt her age. And in no time, I was pushed out the front door. When I realized what was going on, the door locked with a thud.
Victoria? No need for a daughter-in-law like you. Get lost.
This is my house. You're the one to leave. My scream was useless. She was determined to lock me outside and ignore my banging on the door. I was in distress and didn't know what to do. Now we're in the cold and not having my kid, but thankfully my phone was in my pocket. I called Victoria. I could hear her phone ring, but she didn't answer. I tried to call Mark, who was supposed to return from his trip that night, but he didn't pick up. I had no choice but to text him. I got locked out of the house by your mom. I'll get hypothermia in the snow. I'll wait for you at a diner nearby. I started walking in the snow. I thought about calling 911, but I didn't want to make a big deal. I was sure Victoria would come up with some excuses to make me look bad. It was better for me to just wait at a diner. I wrapped my arms around my freezing body. My breath hovered around me like smoke. The snow kept falling non-stop and was accumulating on the ground. There was no car or bike passing by. It was nighttime, and there was hardly anyone in sight. I kept moving forward in the quiet darkness. When I finally arrived at the diner, I couldn't believe my eyes. Closed due to the snowstorm. The evacuation spot I reached in desperation was closed. What a night! I chose to go to the police station then. Instead of calling and waiting for them to come, I kept moving with a sense of despair before the heavy snow. The tips of my fingers and toes were numb. When I checked the time on my phone, it had been an hour since I got through out. I called Victoria once again, but she didn't answer. I was walking briskly in the scenery that had completely changed. Help! My feet stopped when I thought I heard something. I was at the beginning of a bridge over a river. I pricked up my ears. Help! What the? I heard it. It was very clear this time. I ran in the direction of the voice. I looked down from the bridge, which wasn't that high, and to my surprise, I saw someone. An old lady was calling for help, lying in a shallow part of the river. I ran down the bank as fast as I could and into the river. Icy water pierced my feet and legs. The coldness turned to pain, but I kept walking toward her. Are you alright? Help me! I can't move. I'm so cold. Are you okay? Stay with me. She must have been relieved to find help, so she leaned against me and passed out. I was in a panic. My feet and legs were frozen and didn't move as I wanted them to. Someone help us! Just when I thought my desperate cries were about to be lost in vain. Oh my God, are you okay? I thought I heard a man's voice, and then Mark showed up. The moment I saw him rushing toward me in a frenzy, I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes the next time, I saw the white ceiling. Honey, are you awake? Mark hovered over my face with a concerned look. He told me that I was in the hospital. After he dragged the old lady and me out of the river, he called 911. It was the night before, and I had been sleeping since then. Your business trip? Hold on. When you called me, I was still on the plane. I called you back as soon as I landed, but you didn't pick up. There was a long queue for a taxi, so I took a train and was just walking back when I saw you going into the river. What luck. I panicked thinking you were throwing yourself into the river. Well, it seems the old lady did though. Mark told me that she tried to commit suicide because she was depressed about her life. When she hit the water, which was so cold that she came back to herself and tried to get out, but her body was frozen and she was unable to move. If she wasn't found at that time, she might have not made it. So she survived. As I felt relief, I became drowsy again. Sleep. You must be exhausted. Take a good rest. I was reassured by his kind words combined with the warmth of the hospital room. I slowly drifted off to sleep. Burning in anger at Victoria, I was hospitalized for a few days and regained my energy. When I got home in a short while, I frozen in front of it. Victoria never once showered her face while I was in the hospital and of course never apologized. She locked me out in the heavy snow and almost killed me. I honestly couldn't live with her anymore. I opened the front door with a heavy heart. As soon as I stepped inside, I was taken aback by the sight of her. Yikes! Victoria! I wasn't expecting to face her right away.
I'm very sorry, Sally.
I froze in surprise as her voice came into my ears. Pardon me? Unbelievable. She apologized. As I couldn't say anything, she continued.
I didn't imagine you would end up like that. I sincerely regret that I lost my temper and kicked you out. Please forgive me.
She begged in tears. Well, did you really regret it? She was always so condescending to me no matter what. She locked me out in the snow. I was very much skeptical. It was too crazy to think there was no catch. I looked at her with suspicious eyes. What would you do if I said I can't forgive you? Victoria jerked a little. I thought I was going to die from the cold. If Mark didn't find me, who knows how I would have ended up? I would think that anyone with the right mind would have known what was to happen if someone was locked out in such a heavy snowfall. If you say you didn't know, does that mean you are crazy? When I said it full of sarcasm, her face turned red.
What did you say?
She ranted loudly.
Just because I apologized, you tried to make advantage of me. How dare you? Mark said he would end up the cohabitation if I didn't apologize to you, so I had no choice but to obey him. Do you get it? I did what I was told to do, so it's over now. Get to your chores if you understood.
She took my little provocation so easily. I gloated over her true intention. She had no remorse as I expected. I guess people can change overnight. Especially a person like her won't change forever. As if to upset my feelings, she started bullying me right away.
You must wash my clothes in cold water.
She still wanted me to do that.
You must cook only my favorite meals. If it's bad, I will sort it out.
Oh God, no. There was no saving grace for her. I sighed loudly as I turned my face behind me. Honey, what should I do now? Mark stood a short distance away, just out of sight of Victoria. He, my husband and a beloved son of Victoria, had been standing there since the beginning.
Mark, what about your work?
Victoria was stunned by the sight of him. I took a day off to accompany Sally. Anyway, you're not sorry at all, are you?
Oh, no. It was just a joke, of course.
If it really was, it was not funny at all. I told you, didn't I? Be deeply remorseful for what you did and apologize to her. And never do anything like that again.
I did apologize, didn't I?
You bounced back right away and were nasty to her again. I told you that was a joke. It was a very bad joke. I had told Mark to keep distance from me for a bit. Victoria reacted as I expected, or rather, more brilliantly. I couldn't stop laughing at her desperate excuses.
What are you laughing about, Sally? You know you're...
Hey, Mom, I'm talking to you right now. Listen to me.
I'm sorry.
It seemed that even she couldn't evade a scolding of her beloved son. He continued coming down on her, who listened in tears. How can you treat Sally so terribly? She was worried about you and agreed to have you with us.
I was a little out of line earlier, but I never bullied her.
She still tried to deny it.
Well, I did comment on her food a few times, but I just wanted her to know my taste. I told her to take my clothes to the dry cleaner, but she was the one who said it was a waste of money and wanted to wash them herself. When I told her to put some makeup on, she didn't listen and even threw her cosmetics away in front of me. I sometimes wondered if she was being sarcastic.
What was she talking about? It sounded like she didn't want to take any responsibility for all she had done. I had no choice but took out my phone and played back the recording.
These are expensive clothes, so you must wash them by hand.
A clear recording of her voice played. She screamed and tried to take my phone away. I dodged her hand and continued the playback.
You must wash in cold water. No need for a daughter-in-law like you. Get lost.
The sound of her dragging me out and locking the front door, ignoring me calling out to her. All the abuse she said and did that day was recorded. I had this phone in my pocket and was recording. Whenever I had conversation with her, I always set my phone to record mode, so that I could keep evidence of her words and deeds at any cost. My daily action must have brought me a good result. If I didn't have my phone that day, it would have turned out differently. Do you have anything to say? Victoria was agitated. Do you have any last words?
Last words?
Yes.
What do you mean?
This is the end. You trampled on my kindness to take care of you. I want you out of the house.
No way!
I'm cutting ties with you. You go ahead and leave alone. I'll never get in touch with you. I'll ignore you if you try to contact me. I'll never see you again. You still got the money from when you sold your house. If you have a pension on top of it, you can live comfortable without my support.
Wait a minute, Mark. Hold the thought. Are you going to throw me out? Are you betraying your only parent?
You betrayed me. She was speechless to his anger and just slumped her shoulders. The melting snow falling from the roof sounded louder than usual in the silence. Then it all happened so fast. Mark and I packed out Victoria's belongings where she was depressed and doing nothing. Her hometown where she was moving to was 2 hours by car from our house. She had some relatives there, but they'd been estranged until now. I suppose no one was going to pay much attention even she came back. She also seemed to have no friends as she never went out when she was with us. I assumed she had a lot of time on her hands that she entertained herself by bullying with me. But it no longer mattered to me.
Bye-bye, Grandma.
My daughter flapped her hands to Victoria. She finally started to cry when she saw her lovely granddaughter not sad to see her go but smiling at her. A taxi carrying her drove off, leaving her sobs behind. It didn't bring up any feelings in me. I was just thinking she got a self-inflicted wound and walked into the house with a refreshed mind. Days and months passed by. Victoria was living alone and lonely. I sometimes received calls from her, so I assumed she was well. We have never met up or spoken to her as declared back then. She will continue to live alone and lonely. The cost of destroying the happiness she received was a high price to pay. I've gotten back peace of mind after she left. I'm serving tea to a surprise visitor as I listen to the sound of the washing machine spinning. My guest is an elderly woman, the same lady I had saved that snowing day. She became pessimistic about her life after living alone for a while and had a lot on her mind. But then she felt the icy river water and wanted to try living a little longer. My son told me to move in with his family. That's great news. His wife is a very nice person, but I don't want to be burdened. So I've decided to move closer to them instead. Oh, I see. My son lives far away, and I don't see him at all. I've been alone and lonely ever since my husband passed away, and I thought nothing good would come for leaving. But now I know it doesn't have to be that way. I'm very happy to hear that.
As long as I'm alive, I will leave. I'm very thankful to you for rescuing me that day."
We smiled at each other. The old lady lived hard, alone and lonely, and found happiness. Victoria voluntarily disrupted her own cohabitation with her family. There are many ways to spend retirement. Everyone is different. But depending on your attitude, it can be happy or unhappy. Looking at the two old women, I have a vague idea of what I want my future to be like. I remind myself how I should live in order to keep my current peaceful and happy life, and to have a happy retirement. My name is Kat. I'm finally engaged to Doug, my boyfriend of 10 years from high school. Since we've been visiting each other's houses for a long time, we already know the families well. We're only in our late 20s, but already have the vibe of a mature couple.
You're finally going to be my daughter-in-law. I've been waiting for it. I'm also happy to finally be Mistress Jones like you.
Doug's mother, Stacy, was so excited once the wedding preparation started. I adored her, who was always smiling and caring, and started to call her mom over the past 10 years.
By the way, where's Doug? We can't decide on the seating if he's not here. I also need to ask him about his rehearsal.
I'm at her house to go over the details of our wedding. He and I had different engagements, so we were supposed to meet there.
Oh, he texted me earlier that he got some urgent things to take care of. He said we could decide ourselves. He's so irresponsible. Don't mind him.
She frowned at her son's nonchalance.
It reminds me of the time when I was waiting for him here using his house key and you came back before him. Oh, right. That was during the summer. I remember he didn't come back for a while, so we had fun chatting away.
He supposedly bumped into the friend and ended up hanging out with him at the time. His habit of canceling plans has been going on for a long time. I got used to dealing with it after 10 years. Stacy and I reminisced about the past while working on the wedding plan together. Doug kept canceling the preparation for our wedding after that. His habits seemed to get worse than before, and he was aware of it himself.
I know I'm acting weird lately. Perhaps I got pre-wedding blues. I'll get over it soon, so please be patient with me.
I reluctantly showed my understanding when he excused himself, but I actually wanted him to apologize instead of asking me to tolerate him. Wasn't it usually the bride who had the pre-wedding blues? Besides, was he really that sensitive? Never mind.
By the way, what should we do for our honeymoon? Where do you want to go?
I'm not keen to go overseas. I can't speak any other language than English anyway. I prefer to go somewhere within the country, like New York City, and eat.
You're so not romantic.
Well then, should we go to New Orleans and have jambalaya?
Still about food.
We discussed our honeymoon happily. My mood wasn't yet to be fully recovered, but we were in the middle of some fun planning. It wasn't very mature to stay in a bad mood. I gave him the benefit of the doubt. His so-called pre-wedding blues didn't get any better after that, and he kept canceling our meetings. There were nights when he didn't come home, saying he was going out with friends for one last bachelor drink. I felt a lot of frustration and a little mistrust. When I complained to him, he kept telling me,
just for a little longer, I'll be back to myself when we get married.
I was skeptical. Our wedding day arrived regardless of his odd behavior. It was a clear blue sky on the morning of the ceremony, and our prospects seemed to be bright. After 10 years of dating, we finally became a married couple, watched over by old friends, relatives, and colleagues. Doug swore to me that he would love only me for the rest of his life, and I imagined a bright future ahead of us. Once the wedding was over, it was time for our honeymoon after a short break. We were going to eat till we dropped for 4 nights, 5 days in New York City. I chose clothes for the climate, made a list of souvenirs, and put sticky notes in a guidebook. My excitement grew bigger by the day. On the morning of our departure, Doug went to the bakery to buy some breakfast. I was doing the final check of my luggage and putting on some makeup. A little later, I got a call from Doug. Wondering if my order was out of stock, I picked up the phone.
Hey, honey, I just got a call from the hospital. My mom was rushed to the emergency room.
What? It was nothing to do with my breakfast, but an unanticipated incident. That energetic and cheerful Stacy was in trouble. The joyful melody playing in the background of Doug's voice contradicted the situation and annoyed me.
I'm heading there now. I can't go on a trip. You've been looking forward to it, so you go ahead. I'm really sorry. I won't be able to take a call for a while.
Wait, which hospital is she in? He hung up on me before I finished my sentences. He turned off his phone right away, so I couldn't get in touch with him after that. I was flabbergasted. It was an important milestone in our life, yet another cancellation at the last minute. Well, this time was out of his control. After all, my mother-in-law, whom I adored, was rushed to the emergency room. Her request was on the list of souvenirs. She was looking forward to the chocolates from Mary Bell. There was no way I could go on a trip by myself. I decided to rush to the hospital as soon as I got in touch with Doug again. I was restless, wandering around the house and waiting to hear from him. My phone finally rang 30 minutes later. I picked it up even before the first ring finished.
Yes. Hi, Kat. Good morning. You're leaving today, right? It seems cold there, so take care and enjoy your trip. Wait, is this Mom? The code was from the one who had supposedly been rushed to the hospital. I picked up the phone without checking the caller on the screen. I was totally confused about what was happening. Did Doug have 2 mothers? Maybe that one I knew was an adoptive mom, and he had a birth mom? Is this really Mom? What's wrong with you? Why do you sound so strange? It was her for sure. I thought you were taken to the hospital. Huh? For what? I'm good as usual. She sounded dubious. I realized that Doug lied to me. It didn't matter to him that we just got married, but why? I couldn't figure out the reason. When Stacy finished listening to my explanation, she lowered the tone of her voice. I see. I'm really sorry about my idiot son. I don't know what he's trying to do. Well, can you hold for a minute? I didn't know why, but I was bothered by something. It was the cheerful melody I could hear in the background on Doc's call. I opened my tablet to see if I could figure out what was bugging me. My hunch was on point, and I found what I wanted to know right away. Hey, Kat, what's going on? Mom, do you want to go on a trip with me? What?
Let's go to New York City together. I could feel that she was contemplating. My brain cells began to work toward revenge against Doug. Watch out, bastard. Stacy and I enjoyed our trip and returned home after 5 days. Doug never called me, but sent me texts like, "Having a good time? Don't worry about my mom." I was amazed by his foolishness. His mom was with me, yet he thought his life was still intact. My feelings for him quickly evaporated. He was not only dishonest, but was a total moron. Stacy agreed with my plan to punish him severely. She and I took an earlier flight back home and waited for Doug's return. He came back a little before I was originally scheduled to be back. He was taken aback by the sight of me.
Oh my god, you're already back!
Yes. He brought in a sweet scent of perfume with him. He must have planned to shower before I came back. I pretended not to notice and asked him nonchalantly, "I'm sorry for leaving you behind. How did it go with you?"
Oh no worries. I told you to go. Did you enjoy it?
Yes, very much. I got you a souvenir. And your mom?
She's out of critical condition, thankfully.
That's great. I would like to visit her.
It's all good. Don't make a big deal for her.
It was impossible not to make a big deal out of a family member being rushed to the emergency room. I thought he was crazy. Listen, Doug, what you're saying is weird.
Why? Because
Stacy was very ill, wasn't she? Why can't I go and visit her then?
Ugh, you're overreacting. I'm telling you to drop it.
Drop it? How? You're nuts.
You went on a trip regardless. That doesn't sound considerate, does it? End of the story.
Then I coyly gave him the multiple choice question. Here's a quiz for you. I did go on the trip, but who on earth did I go with? 1. A friend. 2. My husband. 3. Your mom. Which is your answer?
What the hell?
He backed away so far that he was against the wall. As he was cornered, I showed him pictures from the trip. A picture of Stacy and I in the same pose as the Statue of Liberty. Stacy biting into a big slice of New York-style pizza, and me eating Mr. Sophie's soft ice cream cone in Central Park. There were dozens of other photos.
You are kidding?
Of course not. She was with me. Now, here's another quiz. It wasn't your mom you've been with. So, who was it?
It wasn't my mom, but my aunt.
You are a freaking moron, aren't you? If you're going to lie, come up with something better. It was astounded when the bedroom door opened. I can't listen to you guys anymore. Doug, where have you gone?
What the? Mom?
Oh no, you aren't supposed to come out yet. Sorry, but I can't stand it anymore. Shame on you, Doug. Come over here and sit. Stacy jumped out, looking furious. She had him sit in a chair and stood beside him in rage. Where have you been the past 5 days? Where's your motive to making your aunt and me sick? He flustered, looking pale as a ghost. Explain, and don't you dare lie to me. He was like a lobster on the kitchen counter. His fate was to be cooked by his mom and me, although he didn't look so tasty. To sum up his story, which he explained in agitation, he was indeed cheating on me. It was a fling in the beginning. He and I had been dating since high school, so he didn't know any other women. He thought it was a shame, so he came up with the idea of playing the field in his remaining days of bachelorhood. His motive for cheating was too ridiculous that it infuriated me more. If he had just gone to a strip club, I could have turned a blind eye, but he chose adultery. And the adulteress was his co-worker, whom we had invited to our wedding. They both had such thick skin. The reason he kept canceling our pre-wedding meetings was to hang out with her. When the ceremony was done, so was the fling, he thought. He made a chance to be alone with her during the reception and told her it was over for them. However, she had fallen for me and resisted breaking up. She used threats like,
I would tell everyone at work about us when you're away on a honeymoon trip. Don't go if you don't want me to do that. I'm not going to break up with you.
Their discussion was tangled up until the day of our honeymoon. The reason he suddenly canceled the trip was to calm his adulteress from going out of control. But I already knew his story contradicted the truth. He didn't decide to cancel on a day, but had already decided way before. When Stacy called me, I found out his lie. When I had checked on my tablet that day was his credit card statement, which showed a record of Amtrak and hotel name. The destination was New Orleans. It was one of the potential honeymoon spots for us. The payment was made 2 weeks ago, and there was no sign of cancellation. Taking all that into that account, it meant that he originally planned to cancel his honeymoon and go to New Orleans with his adulteress. I also checked the cheerful music playing behind his rubbish call on social media. The familiar music was coming from the fountain in the Amtrak station. When he made that call to me, his trip with his adulteress had already started. How ludicrous of him. If he had planned it for so long, he should have been more methodical with his deceit. It was really pathetic. When I exposed his lie, to my surprise, he started crying. I was the one who should have been crying, and not him who created the fiasco. He had already lied when he swore at the wedding that he would only love me for the rest of his life. He lied about his mom being rushed to the emergency room, and again, lied about the sudden cancellation of our honeymoon. How could I trust him after all these lies? He may have been seeing other women when he canceled our plans before this. 10 years of our relationship had completely fallen apart, and I couldn't return to it. I want a divorce. Wait a moment, honey. I'm really sorry. Let's start over. We've only been married less than a month. You've got to let this minor mistake go. A minor mistake? Don't you be the judge.
He's an idiot, Kat. I apologize on his behalf. You are so insensitive to what you've actually done to her. You won't be able to regain her trust for the rest of your life. Reflect on that, you loser.
She fiercely scolded him. After 10 years of dating and 1 month of marriage, he was abandoned by his wife and his mom. He wailed shamelessly in despair. Doug and I divorced in the end. There was not a shred of affection or love left in me after 10 years together. All I had was dismay and coldness. He resisted the divorce for a long time, but he eventually gave up and signed the papers in tears. People around me were stunned to hear about the quick end of my marriage, but when I explained the audio, they sympathized with me. I returned the gifts and money I received from them. It was easy for me to do because of the alimony from Doug. My coworker says she will set up blind dates for me soon. She tells me to forget about marriage for a while and play the field. I agree with her, and I'm looking forward to fun encounters. Doug, too, announced his divorce and was surprised, but he couldn't get into the detail. In his case, how could he declare that it was due to his adultery? And the adulteress was in the same office. Anyway, it spread from my side, and almost everyone in his office knew about it. He's frowned upon by colleagues as a guy who cancelled his honeymoon for a trip with his adulteress. I would think no company can entrust an important job to such an idiot in the future. He made his bed. Now he has to sleep in it. As for the adulteress, she broke up with him. Apparently, she was a maid poacher. She lost interest in Doug after we separated. She's a villain of all women. I've been scheming to get back at her with the evidence I have. Stacy has been source of all that information. Since I no longer have any relationship with Doug, it's weird to keep calling her mom, but it's also weird for me to call her by her name all of the sudden. I contemplate how to address her in me well. I still call her mom. She couldn't believe Doug's adultery at first and was greatly shocked when she found out. She was consistently on my side after that. When I demanded alimony from him, she even pressured him for me. I wondered why she was so cooperative regardless of our 10-year relationship. I would think that she would try to protect her own son. So I asked her one day. Her eyes stare into the distance while she explains to me.
To be honest, I've been cheating before.
Oh no, by your husband?
Yes, I found out half a year after we got married.
Seeing her always cheerful, I never imagined she went through such a terrible thing.
But when I was a newlywed, the position of women was still weak in society. When I cried to my mother-in-law, she snapped at me, saying it was a wife's duty to turn a blind eye. My husband also said that it was a man's way of stress relief. I just couldn't conceive myself. The mistrust I developed then has never left me.
I'm sorry.
So, I had to try a little harder as a consolation to the old me.
She looks at me and smiles mischievously.
Never mind me, but your life is just beginning. I'm glad that you become my daughter-in-law, even if it was only for a short time. Thank you for inviting me on the trip too. I was so happy that I could choose my own chocolates.
I templated for a bit and then asked her, well, if you don't mind, can we continue to be good friends? Not as my mother-in-law, but as a real friend.
I would love to, but won't it be too painful for you? You would be reminded of Doug, wouldn't you?
Not at all. You've been so kind to me, so I'm much better now.
Are you sure?
Sure. I'm really over him and the whole ordeal now. She contemplates a bit and then says,
well, I'm happy to be your friend. Will you take a trip with me again?
Of course. She gives me a giddy smile. Doug and I parted in a messy way, but I still adore her. We get along so well. I'm going to secretly practice calling her by name by the next time I see her.